So this is the masthead of William Lloyd Garrison's original abolitionist newspaper, but it's colorized because it's the Liberator dot today. I've made a mistake, and I think it's a grave one. I've been saying for 5 episodes now that the story of Plenty Coups and his dreams presents a blueprint for hope. But now that seems to me like something a white man would say. A blueprint is for building a building, something solid and stable, with all its angles precisely configured. When Plenty Coups' friend, Coyote Runs, remembers the dream, he says, quote, "We traveled by that dream. The chiefs understood it was time the crows turned their faces another way." Coyote Runs understood the instructions not as a staid blueprint, but rather as a path to travel, as a way in which to turn their faces. The white man that I am wants to say, okay then, we've been given a map. But no, better images for this would be of the stars in the night sky by which one can determine direction, albeit not precisely, or like landmarks on the horizon, or like blaze marks carved into the trunk of an aspen tree. My name is Lowell Bliss. Welcome to episode 41 of the Liberator Today's video series on hope. Abbat.dia, the creator god, gave dreams to Plenty Coups as a young crow boy. Yellow Bear, whom Plenty Coups calls the wisest man in the lodge, interpreted those dreams according to his wisdom and experience. We might say that Plenty Coups showed the crow people the unfamiliar mountainside that Abbat.dia had revealed to him. Yellow Bear discerned that that landscape included a trail. Yellow Bear carved the first few blaze marks into the first few trees. And then Plenty Coups, when he grew up, became the chief that led his people along that trail. What I want to do in this episode is to give at least one example of how the Crow Nation made practical decisions in light of their interpretation. Cutting a blaze mark in the trunk of a tree is a very proactive, decisive action. You, of course, must discern where the trail is heading, but even then, any old tree along the trail won't do. You must choose a tree that is in a traveler's line of sight, and it must be a strong statement, especially at a critical juncture. The traveler might be tempted to go off one way, off base on how a plot of ground might open up. But the blaze mark says, no, this is the true path, whether it looks that way or not. And once you carve it, you can't erase it. First, though, I want to tell you my own story of having awakened from a night's sleep and encountering a revelation from God about a pathway forward. I was at the first ever conference on Christianity and climate change, first ever for me, I should say. And I was talking with my friend Alan Johnson, director of Christians for the Mountains, an organization seeking to abolish mountaintop removal coal mining. At a break, Alan was describing for me some of his friends in the region. He loves them dearly, and how since so few jobs are available, they seem to have no choice but to keep working for the coal companies or supporting them from the unemployed sidelines. Then Alan said something that struck me to the quick, so much so that I went to bed that night with a heavy weight of despair. Alan said that the people of Appalachia, quote, have no choice but to keep making bricks for Pharaoh, unquote. Alan was referring to the Israelites enslaved in Egypt. No hope, no leadership, nothing to do each day except to add straw to mud and bake more bricks for their oppressors. The next morning I woke up, made a cup of coffee in my room, and opened up my Bible as was my morning habit. Usually, first off, I randomly select a psalm, and that morning I read Psalm 77. Quote, "Has God forgotten to be gracious? Has he slammed the door on his compassion?" There is an interlude after verse 9 that is apparently long enough for despair to set in. The psalmist writes, "And I said, this is my fate. The Most High has turned his hand against me." But then the psalmist remembers God's wonderful deeds of long ago and his awesome power among the nations. He is remembering the Exodus in particular, the redemption of those who at one time had no choice except to keep making bricks for Pharaoh. The passage evoked for me another reference from my experience of the conference the day before. The conference had been talking about pathways forward on mobilizing Christians for climate action. The work of the conference that next morning, in about an hour's time, was to break up into task forces and brainstorm practical pathways forward. So listen to the last verses of Psalm 77 as read by someone like myself who was primed to receive them. Quote, "When the Red Sea saw you, O God, its waters looked and trembled. The sea quaked to its very depths. The clouds poured down rain. The thunder rumbled in the sky. Your arrows of lightning flashed. Your thunder roared from the whirlwind. The lightning lit up the world. The earth trembled and shook." Our mighty God. Then this. "Your road led through the sea, your pathway through the mighty waters, a pathway no one knew was there. You led your flock along that road like a flock of sheep, with Moses and Aaron as their shepherds." That's the end of the psalm. The pathway through the raging Red Sea, the pathway out of slavery, was a road through the mighty and terrifying waters. But most significantly of all, it was a pathway no one knew was there. No one, that is, except Yahweh. God knows the path, and it is his grace and prerogative to reveal it when and to whom he chooses. In the last verse, the pronoun you refers to God. You led your people along that road like a flock of sheep. But that's not the end of the sentence, because it goes on to say, with Moses and Aaron as their shepherds. Yahweh, Moses, and Aaron, each doing their part. Abad.dia, Plenty Coups, and Yellow Bear. God, Alan Johnson, and you in an age of climate change. All fills me with hope. So what practical pathways forward did the crow create out of these dreams? In his interpretation, Yellow Bear says, quote, "The four winds represent the white man and those who will help him in his wars. The forest of trees is the tribes of these wide plains. And the one tree that the four winds left standing after the fearful battle represents our own people, the crow, the one tribe of the plains that has never made war against the white man." That's Yellow Bear, unquote. Coyote Runs later says that Yellow Bear and the chiefs, quote, "saw it was best to do something to prove their friendship to the white men, and they began to watch for a chance too. When they found it, the crows pointed their guns with the white man's, and some of us died, and we lost many horses," unquote. So one practical decision is that the crow decided to ally with the United States against the crow's traditional enemies. Jonathan Lear writes, "And the U.S. government did treat the crow as an ally. This fact did not stop the United States from repeatedly revising treaties at will and from encroaching on crow lands. But unlike other tribes, the crow were not displaced from their lands. They were not put on a forced march. They did not have to walk a trail of tears. And they could correctly say of themselves that they were never defeated. Their undefeated status remains a source of pride among the crow." Plenty Coups himself commented on this most fateful of decisions. He said, We had always fought the three tribes, Sioux, Cheyenne, and Arapaho anyway, and might as well do so now. Our decision was reached not because we loved the white man, who was already crowding other tribes into our country, or because we hated the Sioux, Cheyenne, and Arapaho, but because we plainly saw that this course was the only one which might save our beautiful country for us. And then he says to his biographer, "Look at our country. It was chosen by my people out of all the heart of the most beautiful land of all the world because we were wise. And it was my dream that taught us the way." Unquote. Okay, we best stop there because of time. We will look at a couple more practical decisions next week. as well as ask the question whether in the Crow's case radical hope was justified. Plenty Coups seems to think so. I'm Lowell Bliss, Christian environmental missionary and climate activist. Thank you for visiting the Liberator today.